Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving,
I don't wanna take advice from fools.
you always won every time you placed a bet.
That's what I want.
I'm Joe Duffy, CEO of OffshoreInsiders.com. Now I want to give you a little idea of how we handicap our college basketball games. One of the first things to do, if we want to look up information or more information on a specific game, we just enter it into the search engine, but instead of going to Google, we go to Google News, which is news.google.com. And as you can see, I entered Texas against Kansas State. They're playing the night that I record this, and you can get all the news stories from the various local newspapers and even the national sources where you can get previews and game stories on that very specific game. Then, of course, you just click on the link and you can go to that specific story. So that's really good as far as getting specific information on a specific game. Let's say you want to try the opposite approach and you just want to do a reading of some of the game notes from the team's sports information departments. BB State, very good site where it has most of the SID releases, and of course some of them are just about a player getting the game of the week, etc. But they do game previews, and some of these times the notes come out a day, 2 days, 3 days before the game because that's what the media is going to use for their game previews. And for example, this is the official game preview from the Miami, Ohio SID department and previewing their game notes in their contest against Akron. So again, that is at bbstate.com. I guess I will take these down since we've already done them. Now, how about databases? One of my favorites is covers.com. And yes, Covers is, I guess, technically a competitor of mine, although admittedly we don't have a database on our site that can compete with Covers. One of the things I like best about Covers is their splits. If you want to look at various splits, of course, home road splits are the single most popular thing to look at, and you can see how the home team does in home games and the road team does in road games. That's, obviously points per game, and that's the NCAA average, so you can actually compare it to the median, and it's fantastic for that. And then you have a bunch of other options, such as how a team does as an underdog. A lot of people like to look at recent play, so you can see how a team has done both their last 5 games overall, or how the home team has done in the last 5 home games, how the road team has done in their last 5 road games. So again, covers.com is very good, specifically, in my opinion, at least where they're at their strongest, is when they do the game splits. Another really good site, teamrankings.com. Team Rankings I like. You've probably heard the old sweat barometer statistic. For years I called it a margin of cover, but they do as good of a job as anybody. And, it's kind of a tougher site to navigate at first. It's very intimidating. They have so many statistics, but once you memorize it, it's a lot easier to navigate around. But if you're a believer in the margin of cover, it tells you which teams are actually the best and the worst, and you can rank it as far as, which team has covered by the highest average margin, which team has been the best go against based on the margin of cover or sweat barometer. And again, that's similar to a straight up margin, except it is their margin relative to ATS. But what I really like about this is you can see how far a team has traveled. Now, you can also go to Google and just enter, if you know the cities. It's tough to memorize all the college cities, but, if you're doing, like, for example, NFL, you can say Philadelphia to Los Angeles travel distance, and it will tell you. But if you don't have every single college town memorized, you can also go to the specific game previews and see the travel analysis, and you can see how far a team traveled. Obviously, Miami, being the home team here, hasn't traveled at all. Virginia traveling a full 857 miles. I particularly love this when it comes to March Madness. And by March Madness, I guess March Madness technically just means the NCAA tournament, but also the conference tournaments. When you're talking about any neutral games, also at the beginning of the year, when teams play neutral games, you can see how far a team has traveled. And Team Rankings, probably the absolute best for that. And again, Team Rankings also does a very nice breakdown. You can really have it displayed. They're probably the most versatile as far as displaying team logs the way you want them based on your preferences. For the longest time, I was the biggest fan of StatFox's premium Fox Sheets, and I subscribed for literally the first, maybe, I don't even know how long they've been around, but going back to the Score Phone days when they first had their premium stuff, Fox Sheets, been subscribing since the beginning. Just recently stopped doing that because they're far and away the slowest to update their databases. And we're talking about college basketball. Really drives me nuts during the conference tournaments when teams play back-to-back. That's when Fox Sheets is at their worst, and we need them to be at their best. But still, what I like most about Fox Sheets is when you get these statistics, it is relative to what their opponents normally allow. So rather than just saying, this team averages 71.1 points per game and this team averages 75.5, we compare it to what their opponents normally allow. And that's kind of like a power rating based on each individual statistical category. I actually like the shooting percentage. As you can see here, Virginia, very good shooting team. They go up against teams that normally allow 42.6, but they're getting 49.6. But that's still the number one strength of Fox Sheets. And Fox Sheets used to be very good for systems, but I really don't think they've done a heck of a job as far as updating their database when it comes to some of the systems that apply in specific games. Now, Sports Database, a tremendous site. You really want to learn the language, and in particular NCAA database, they say is in beta testing, but it's a pretty good guideline. Let's say we want to look up a team that is a big underdog even though they're hot. So, and again, this is where algebra, I was one of those people thought I would never use algebra ever again, but now I use it on a daily basis thanks to Sports Database. This says a double-digit underdog. You can see the line is greater than or equal to 10, and let's say they've won at least 8 straight games straight up. So this basically says I want to see how a red-hot team does as a big underdog, and you can look that up, and as you can see, very rare, but it hits 63% of the time. Extremely versatile database. Again, much like I told you, team rankings is kind of intimidating when you first go to it. Well, Sports Database, that is nothing on Sports Database. Very intimidating, but once you start to learn the language, and I will say, those of you who did pay attention to your algebra classes in high school, really everything is kind of written in an algebraic equation, so you're going to be very happy if you did pay attention in high school to algebra, because it really helps here, and a great magical database as long as you know what you're doing, and it takes some time, but it is worth the time investment. Now let's check KenPom.com for Ken Pomeroy. Great site, and among these statistics that I love, you can see which teams are the best based on adjusted offense and adjusted defense, and that is, well, there you go, as the key says, adjusted is based on points per 100 possessions. And that is very good because one of the most deceptive statistics in handicapping is when people look at, points for or points against. That's very overrated because that's based a lot more on pace than it is anything. Obviously, a team that constantly plays a half-court game is going to be one of the better teams defensively when it comes to points per game allowed. And offensively, they will have deceptively low statistics as far as points per game. But this takes into consideration the pace, and this is based on per 100 possessions per game. So therefore, the slower tempo teams aren't punished on offense and rewarded on defense with specific statistics. So you can see that Notre Dame is the number one team in terms of adjusted offense. Duke is number 2, and we can also arrange it on defense, who are the best teams. Wichita State is the best team in the country, followed by Louisville, San Diego State when it comes to adjusted defense. And of course, it ranks every single Division I team. Some of them are non-board teams, but you can rank it from first to worst, and of course, you can do your comparison. Another statistic that I really love when it comes to handicapping is the luck rating. And essentially, look, remember, I have said so many times over the years, whether you're a premium client or whether you've seen my videos and articles, the single most overrated statistic when it comes to handicapping games is a one-loss record, because we're picking games against the spread. And this is a math model that KenPom came up with that basically says teams that have a great winning percentage in close games, they win a lot of close games, they don't lose many, they are very lucky. Where teams that have lost a lot of close games but aren't winning many, they are unlucky. And based on our theory, the luckiest teams are the ones that are most overrated. The unluckiest teams, and you can click on that and then put it in reverse order and find out who the unluckiest teams are. The unlucky, well, all right, I thought it did do it in reverse. It usually does. But anyway, the unluckiest teams at the bottom are the teams that we would actually want to bet on, or at least lean towards betting on, because they are the teams with the most deceptive records as far as they are actually better than their straight-up record. And these teams at the top of the luck factor are actually have deceptively good records. The luck factor theory as it applies to handicapping would be that these teams are actually not as good as their straight-up record says. So the adjusted offense, adjusted defense, and the luck factor are very good. Strength of schedule, again, pretty much self-explanatory, but this is really big when it comes to the NCAA tournament. We can see which team has played the best strength of schedule, which team has played the worst. I do like Massey ratings also for strength of schedule. That is MasseyRatings.com. So these are just some of our favorite sites for when it comes to mastering sports handicapping at OffshoreInsiders.com, www.offshoreinsiders.com.